Welcome to the Practicing Accountant Podcast, your go-to resource for transforming your accounting practice. This podcast is for accountants ready to take control of their business and build their ideal practice by mastering the essentials, setting the right prices, defining a powerful niche, and selling with ease. We'll dive into strategies that boost profits, attract your ideal clients, elevate your services, and help you choose the most effective pricing models. We are champions for efficiency, value, and intentionality, and adversaries of people-pleasing, bad clients, and complacency. We provide actionable strategies to help you break the hamster wheel of typical accounting work. The mission of the Practicing Accountant Podcast is simple: to enhance your experience as an entrepreneurial accountant and help you turn neglected practices into a thriving business. So, if you're ready to level up your practice, this podcast is for you. Tune in and let's get to work. Big news this week. So I pay attention to what's going on for public accountants, for private accountants, which is like CFOs and controllers. And then I pay attention to what's going on to independent accountants, which is what this podcast is about. But there was some big news in the public accounting realm this week. The first time, at least the first big one, the first time there was a second round equity investment happened this week. And it was a big one. It was Blackstone, which is the largest private equity fund in America, at least. I mean, they've got, I don't know how many billions or trillions under management, but they're the biggest. They invested in a firm in New York and bought it. Basically, the first round PE was a company called New Mountain, I think, and they held it only for 2 years. And then Black Mountain came in just this past week and bought New Mountain out, and is now the first big second round of equity infusion into an accounting firm.
Interesting.
Well, it's very interesting. It's exciting. But here's the trick. And we've talked about this a little bit, but there is this theme out there right now that unless you're getting merged into or getting acquired or becoming one of these big conglomerates that are forming, it's pretty soon it's not going to be the big four, it's going to be the big 12.
Yeah.
that you're in trouble.
Right.
That you've got to find someone to buy you or to merge with or to get interested in you to be successful in this business.
Mm-hmm.
And based on what I'm seeing, that's not the case.
Yeah.
Like, there is a thriving market of independent accountants right now.
Yeah.
And there are more and more showing up every day, and it's exciting. I had a conversation with an influencer in accounting on Monday. He's in Hawaii, and he's mostly in, we'll probably have him on here on the podcast at some point, but he's mostly in like workflow, tech stack, efficiencies, like how to really create an efficient system within your firm. And we'll have Donnie on at some point. But his and my conversation was just noticing all the different supporting efforts are going into encouraging and supporting, the independent accountant, the accountant that is on their own or is a small shop. He called them SOHOs, which I thought was an interesting acronym. And he kept using it, and he didn't tell me what it was. And so I was like, dude, what is SOHO? It's small office, home office.
Oh, interesting.
And so it's an accountant that, just has a small office, kind of like, mine or yours, or a home office like yours. And I've got one too, but he calls them SOHOs. I thought it was a great name for it. And it's not New York. It's not London. It's SOHO is a small office, home office. And he and I both are just seeing all this great effort going into supporting independent accountants to be successful in a way that is, very, very optimistic that there's going to be a long-standing group of independent accountants, regardless of what private equity does, regardless of how many people retire, regardless of rule changes and whatever. As long as there are small businesses, there will be a need for independent accountants. And I think that's a wonderful thing to celebrate in this new year is just some job security, some career security that, to have your own shingle and to have your own practice and firm is a great place to be right now. Even with AI and even with all the other stuff. Off topic, but I did read an article this week about AI and the godfather of AI who worked at Google and then he quit. He's predicted that there's a 10 to 20% chance that we as a society will fail and be overrun by robots and AI within, I can't remember the time frame. I want to say it was 5 years, maybe it was 10.
Oh, good.
But there's a 10 to 20% chance, which got me looking around at what other things could happen. And another influencer and I were going back on LinkedIn about other things that could cause society to decline. And my big one is, have you ever seen the movie Idiocracy?
Oh yeah, I love that movie.
Yeah. So that like that movie basically predicted where we're at today, right?
Right. That's now essentially.
That's where we're at. Like there's that scene where the dude's in the cozy chair and he's got a TV monitor in front of him. It's got 12 different windows, all advertising something different, promoting something, showing something, viewing something. And he's just sitting there with this big gulp and everyone's an idiot in the future, basically because of ignorance, incompetence, and consumerism, really. Because that's what happens in Idiocracy. It's remember the Costco and Idiocracy? It's miles long.
Yeah.
You got to take a train to get from one section of Costco to the next. That's the thing to me that in 10 or 5 to 10 years we got to be worried about more than AI, I think. But I digress. But my point is, it's an exciting time to be in this industry and just to be thriving right now. It's a great time.
Yeah, the technology that's out and that is coming out, I think, if utilized by small firms, by Sohos, it can help them compete against these large conglomerate accounting firms. It's set up. It will be set up to where you can be so efficient that you can run your own practice profitably. And I think that's awesome, even more so than in the past, possibly.
Yeah. But the fear is that the big guys are going to step down into the smaller businesses because they've got all the technology to do, maybe complicated work very, very simply and at a price point that small businesses can afford.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's some truth to that. But I also think there's this thing. I think small businesses like small businesses. Small businesses like to work with other folks that are working hard and trying to figure out how to be successful as an entrepreneur. And they share, some of those same values and struggles rather than go work for the big guy or have the work done by the big guy that could give a shit about him.
Well, and the big guy isn't impervious to failure. Look at Bench. They just closed their doors and they were one of the biggest, accounting firms out there, as far as I know, at least the biggest, trying to automate. Accounting isn't so much a product as it is a relationship. And I think trying to automate this relationship has not worked, and I don't know if it will work in the future. So that's a good thing for small firms.
Will. It's going to happen. The degree of automation that we're going to experience over the next year, 2 years, is going to be, I wouldn't say exponentially different, but it's going to be a lot different than it is today, and it's going to benefit us, and it's going to allow us to be more of that advisor for our clients, and we're going to get to do more of the stuff that, in some degrees, might be challenging for some professionals, because they can't hide behind a spreadsheet as much or a tax return as much. But there's a ton of opportunities sitting here, and there's a lot to celebrate. And I'm not going to say I'm bearish or bullish on AI. All I know is it's here and it's going to continue to develop, and every day it changes and it's going to be better. And it's really a matter of how do we use it and how do we use it to help our businesses be better.
Yep. Agreed.
All that said, my topic today is what I want to talk about, or thought about talking about at least, has nothing to do with any of the things I've talked about so far. But it's something that every year, every busy season, I get to a point where I'm working with my clients and I'm reminding them that just because busy season is here doesn't mean we turn off all the other things that you need to do when you're a business owner. And those include, being intentional, being strategic, developing staff if you have any, and one of the more important ones is developing business and serving clients. So a couple of important ones. But I've found a lot of CPAs, a lot of accountants, they get to this time of the year and networking is the furthest thing from their mind. Like setting up lunches in February to talk to banks, to potential clients, to whoever, that's like the furthest thing from their mind right now, or at least the thing they're ignoring right now.
Yep.
and they get their offices cleaned up, and they get rid of last year's CYA, and they get ready to fill their desk with new work and notices and things that they need to focus on for this year, and not reach out and start being intentional about getting new business.
Right.
But here's the hard part. Do you work out? You work out, don't you?
Yep.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And do you work out regularly?
I do.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I about December 20th was a Friday, and that was my last workout up until Monday of this week. So I took just 2 weeks off ish.
Sure.
And I'll tell you what, Monday sucked. Like, I mean, it had only been 2 weeks, but like, I mean, my arms, my elbows are still like messed up. My back, I had to do all kinds of back stretches yesterday on this medicine ball thing that I've got in my office. Like, I was kind of a mess, and I just took 2 weeks off.
Right.
But and it's not like my muscles atrophied and I lost 20 pounds of muscle over those 2 weeks, but it's not like I was eating healthy and doing good things for myself over those 2 weeks either. But it was hard. It's hard to get back into the routine. It's hard to get back into the practice of taking care of yourself, just like it's hard to get back into business development when you take 3 or 4 months of the year off not doing it.
Yep.
Now, your audience, your prospects, your referral sources, they're empathetic. They understand that if you're not reaching out to them to schedule a lunch or a breakfast, it's because you're busy. You're in your busiest time of year. So, they're going to give you some grace for being busy. But you get some habits too. Like, it only takes 60 or so days to develop a habit.
Right.
And so if you have habits of business development right now that you don't practice for the next 3 or 4 months, guess what? You have to start that habit again, and that sucks.
It's harder.
It's harder.
Just like going to the gym. It's once it becomes a habit, once you're disciplined enough to make that part of your daily routine, you don't think twice about going to the gym. No. It's not a pain in the ass. You kind of look forward to it. You're there. It's just, scheduled in your time. And you create that inertia that just helps you do that every day and keep that sharp. And same thing with BD. If you're not keeping that sharp, it's going to be harder to jump back in.
Right. And one of the, call it an excuse, but one of the excuses I hear is, well, I don't have time during the day to do business development. And I get it. You don't have an extra 2 hours to come up with a target list of potential clients or to start reaching out, cold calling or connecting with, I get it. But business development doesn't always have to happen during the business day. Like, I do most of my business development between the hours of like 6 and 7 in the morning. Mm-hmm. Like, I'll send a bunch of emails, I'll do some reading, I'll do some research, I'll do some poking and prodding of potential opportunities, and I'll fire off a bunch of emails or, invite people to something. And then I go to work and I actually get my billable time in. Or yep. Same thing at night. Even tonight, I've got a piece of paper over here with a list of firms that I want to reach out to and talk to, that tonight I might sit down and just fire off emails and try to create some connections. It doesn't interrupt my billable hours, is what I'm saying.
Yep.
Now, if I schedule a breakfast, which I prefer because I can get those done before, business hours, lunches, I don't mind those because I have to eat. And I usually take at least 30 minutes to eat anyway. So what's an extra half hour? Happy hours, I can get a little bit skeptical on this time of year because, first of all, you get a couple of beers in you. That's going to help. That's going to hurt your production that night. It might make you a little groggy the next day. Networking events where you have 1 or 2 beers, I think those are just a little bit harder this time of year. That doesn't mean stop. Mm-hmm. Maybe just don't have as many.
Sure.
The rule I had with my wife, because she's an important piece of this equation, is, one night a week I would go and do something with an intention for business development, whether it be go to a sporting event or a networking event or have a happy hour or do something along those lines. It helped me communicate and set expectations with her on what I would do. And it also held myself accountable to, doing one thing a night.
Yep.
Go ahead.
Real quick, if you can't make, you don't have to spend an hour every day on this. It can be 5 minutes,
right?
20 minutes. And if you can't find 5 minutes or 20 minutes, you were doing something severely wrong or you were wasting time somewhere else. Cut out one Netflix episode or, right. Make your coffee at home instead of going to Starbucks drive-through and sit in line, whatever it is. Right. Or raise prices a little bit so you can get rid of one client and free up an hour of your time that week to do some business development. But if you're really that strapped for time, that's like people saying they can't go to the gym because there's no time. Bullshit. Like, you can make the time. You just have to reallocate it from something unproductive to something productive.
Yeah, manage your discretionary time better.
Yeah.
Right. I just worked with a client may have been this week or last week, I don't remember. But his homework was to block his calendar each week of busy season for 2 lunches or breakfast. I didn't care which.
Mm-hmm.
But just to put it on his calendar, I'm going to lunch or I'm going to breakfast twice a week.
Yep.
So 2 total. And then I also encouraged him to put 2 hours on his calendar each week, wherever he wanted to. It could be before he got to work, after he worked, it could be during the workday. And those 2 hours were to be held for networking or business development conversations. So, so much of what we do now can be done, everything we do now can be done over Zoom or whatever your video conference technology is. And so, sometimes you don't have to have a meal. You don't have to go to lunch. You can just have a 30 or 45-minute conversation with someone and get as much done and save your time traveling to wherever you're going and your money,
Yep.
Having to buy that lunch. But that was his homework, and hopefully he'd do it. We'll find out next time I see him. But again, it's in that honor of not losing the habit, not losing the skill, getting atrophy in those muscles. We still have to keep them going during busy season. Now, there's a big excuse that comes up, which is I've already got enough work. I got more work than I know what to do with. I am full. Why would I think about getting new clients right now?
Isn't that that's the way accountants think always?
That's the way they think, right?
They always say that.
I'm full. I don't need to do anything. And plus, the clients I've gotten have just shown up anyway. I mean, I had to do something, right, I guess, but they showed up and they called and I got referred to work and I'm doing fine. Why would I need to spend extra time? And the answer that you and I both know is because we're trying to improve this experience, which means that there's a lot of clients that you're planning to serve this busy season that you would prefer not to have to serve, or that aren't going to pay on time, or are going to be late in paying at all, or are going to get you to work after the deadline you set with them, or are just assholes and treat you like shit. And those clients, damn it, we don't need to deal with them anymore. So that should be someone else's problem.
Yeah.
And these efforts that we do right now are setting us up so that we can get rid of them and replace them with a better client.
Yep.
And the other thing that you and I are keen on is working with the right client, the ideal client, the client that fits your niche or your interests or your expertise. And we want more of those. And so the business development efforts aren't a blanket, I'm just going to try to find another bad client or maybe someone in the middle. Like, we want to put this towards finding more ideal clients, the right kind of clients, the clients that get us excited. I used to have a rule, and I've had a lot of rules, but this is one of them. When I scheduled business development efforts during busy season, it had to be something important enough that I wouldn't cancel it. Because if it was just another meeting with someone that I've had 5 meetings with already and don't have anything to show for it, then, I'd cancel it that morning. I'd be like, I'd wait. All week long, I'd trick myself into believing I was actually going to go. And then that morning, I'd look at it and be like, I don't have time for lunch. Screw that. I'm canceling. And then I'd cancel it and they'd be fine. And I'd meet with them in the spring. But I would work to schedule things, events, meetings, conversations in busy season that I was afraid to schedule or cancel because they were so important, or it was hard to get a hold of that person, or because it was such a great opportunity or it could lead to such a great opportunity that I wouldn't cancel it.
Yep. It's all about creating demand. And the more demand you create, we're accountants, we should know the demand curve. The more demand you create, the basically leads to higher pricing power. And so you can be more selective with the clients you bring on if you have that higher demand. And that includes, you said, niching and the right client, but it can be the price that they pay as well. The value that you can bring them and the price that they'll pay, which can allow you to get rid of some shitty clients and start this cycle of bringing on one and letting go of 2, and then you can spend more time on the business rather than in it. That creates a much better experience, but you have to create that demand for anything to start here.
Well, there's a gamble that you can make too right now, which is, now if I meet with enough prospects and I talk to them now, even though they're not going to come onto my book of business this season, but I'm still wanting to meet with them and talk to them. I'm going to gamble that whoever's serving them is going to drop the ball, or isn't going to do as good of a job as I can, or isn't whatever. And if I meet with them now, talk about how great things are, and then catch them again after April 15th and say, hey, how'd it go? Last time I talked to you, you were just getting ready to do all your work. How'd that work go? And they're like, could have been better. You'd be like, oh, that's too bad. Well, it just so happens that I've got some availability for a client just like you and would love to have a chance to work with you next busy season if that's a possibility, or this spring or summer or whatever. So it's a great time to be reaching out, even without the intention of bringing them on right now. But you did bring up another thought, which is, what's the price now for a new client? Like 2 months ago, the price was whatever it was. A month ago, the price was whatever it was. But right now, going into this busy season, what is your price? Is it the same as it normally is? Is it more? Is it, what is it?
Better not be the same.
Well, it shouldn't be, because to your point, demand is so high right now.
Yeah.
And also it's a great time to try out a new pricing model. It's a great time to say, you know what, normally I charge, $1,500 for this, but you know what, since demand is high, I really don't need the work. I'm going to try some value-based pricing. And I think that this is probably worth $3,000 to this individual. And so I'm going to charge, I'll give them $2,500. And, you just added $1,000 to work. That goes straight to the bottom line. They don't know any different. And now you've got a new client at a different price point that you don't have to worry about, getting them up to a new pricing model because they're already there.
Yep. If you don't have that steady flow of prospects coming in, you cannot experiment with pricing or service models. Like, business is a big experiment, and you have to test things and see what works. But if you have a ton of people coming to your door, it's a lot easier to test those principles and see what works the best for you and the clients.
Great time to experiment.
Yep.
When the demand is high.
Yep.
So I guess at the end of the day, I guess I'll give some homework. So I would hope anyone listening is going to be intentional about creating space for business development this busy season. Granted, I know that at the dial, let's say, is normally set at like a 6 in business development, or on average a 6. This is the time of year when it's going to dial down, but you're still getting your workouts, you're still getting your exercise, you're still maintaining the habit. So it could be like at a 2 or a 3. And, even go so far as to put some time on your calendar to remind yourself to schedule lunches and breakfasts and time to be sowing those seeds so that you've got something nice to harvest on the back end of this season.
Yep. Awesome, man.
That's all I got. So this conversation today, I think, as we wrap up and close, I would say, here at the Practicing Accountant, our intention is to support our audience in their practice of accounting and coming up with ways in which they can create a better experience for themselves, where they can be more profitable, where they can have more revenue, where they can have more ideal clients, where they can have a much better experience in general in their professions and as an entrepreneur. And that's why we do what we do.
Amen. Love it.
All right.
Awesome, Doug.
Until next time. Cheers.
Until next time. See ya.